Hello there and welcome to Shuttle Bay 4. This time we have a general chat around fan films and fan fiction, but the main topic of discussion today is Axanar. We think it looks like Star Trek, it sounds like Star Trek, and more importantly, it feels like Star Trek. Not even CBS or Paramount can always achieve that.
Alec Peters sent me my patches today.
Oh yeah.
I posted them. Yeah.
Does that mean we're not allowed to slag off Axanar?
Yes, it does.
Well, do you know what? I actually can't think of anything really bad to say about it. So
Yeah.
Yeah, 5 minutes.
is it nearly your bedtime, Patches?
It's nearly bedtime. It is.
I've got a brief thing here just to explain what Axanar is. Patches, if I've got anything wrong, feel free to correct me.
I will.
Axanar. So it's not your birthday, is it?
No, it's Short Bay 4's birthday.
Oh, fuck. It is, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, well, we'll wish ourselves happy birthday in a minute. I can't believe I'm like... Do you know what? I feel really shit now.
Oh, sorry. What?
No. Because I don't even... I actually did know, because I haven't mentioned it a couple times.
You mentioned it.
Yeah, I mentioned it, yeah. But I didn't think to do anything. I should have got a cake.
Look what I made.
Oh,
wicked.
I like that. So, I'm just going to quickly read out this for Axanar, and then Patch is going to correct me on anything I've got wrong. But hopefully this will sort out the timeline and things like that. Okay, so after raising over £100,000 through crowdfunding in 2014, a 21-minute long short film called The 4 Years War Part 3 Prelude to Axanar was released. So that's the first Axanar film. It generally just gets called Prelude to Axanar, or to keep things nice and easy, Prelude. Okay? So it's a documentary-style film consisting of interviews and footage, recreations of events from a 4-year Federation-Klingon war culminating in the Battle of Axanar. Okay, it takes place 21 years before TOS, so that's when the story takes place, and it tells the involvement of Garth Avisa in the war. Now, Garth appeared in the TOS episode Whom Gods Destroy and was something of a hero figure to young Captain Kirk, or should I say young Kirk before he was a captain. The film starred Battlestar Galactica's Richard Hatch and Kate Vernon. It also starred actors from the Star Trek world, including Tony Todd, Gary Graham, and J.G. Hertzler. To be honest, that's a pretty amazing cast. And the final role in the film was played by Alec Peters, who was one of the writers and the executive producer on the film. He's also the CEO of Axanar Productions, and he's the person who's been sued by CBS Studios and Paramount. More on that later. Prelude to Axanar was a proof of concept film to springboard into a full-length feature film. There was more crowdfunding for that, and it raised over $1 million. George Takei was involved in some of that crowdfunding as well. I think he drummed up quite a bit of support. However, after production had started, I don't know how far through production they got. Patches will update us later on, no doubt. CBS and Paramount Pictures brought a copyright infringement case against Axanar Productions. Eventually, it was agreed that Axanar Productions, instead of creating a full-length film, would simply create 2 50-minute short films, which need to stick to some fan film guidelines that CBS published in 2016. So, this is the timeline. Episode 3, Prelude to Axanar, which came out in 2014. That's the first film in the trilogy. The next 2 films are Episode 4 and 5, called The Gathering Storm and Crucible. So that trilogy will tell the story of the 4-year war, and it'll tell the story of Garth. Oh, and the last 2 films aren't out yet, but they will be imminent. I believe we're expecting them in weeks, maybe months, but probably weeks. We're expecting them soon. So that will conclude the trilogy. However, there are 2 other films that are set within the Axanar universe, but not made by Axanar Productions. And I think that's important for legal reasons. They're not made by Axanar Productions, and those are Interlude, which came out in 2019, and The Icarus Maneuver, which came out, I think, only a couple of months ago. So these 2 additions to the Axanar universe are fan films based on a fan film, if that makes sense. There's probably a lot of similar people involved, but the legal entities that own the studios that make those are separate to Axanar Studios. So just to summarize, Axanar will be a trilogy of films. The first one's out. The next 2 will be out soon. And Interlude and The Icarus Maneuver are 2 fan films based on Prelude to Axanar. And
That's it. Yeah. So, a bit
Did you
on
back it first? Because the crowdfunder campaign, did you back it?
Yeah. So there was a lot of fan films around, and I mean, Seth MacFarlane did a fan film, a Star Trek fan film, in his garage, in his parents' garage, actually, and it was a lot of like, you know what I mean by, how you doing, Rashid?
Hello, everybody. Hello.
Okay.
So there was a lot of fan films that were like that. You know what I mean by 8mm type.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
know,
Yeah.
Real rough and ready stuff, and it was just for love of the franchise, for love of the universe, this whole Star Trek thing, and everyone that was like real big into it was in this kind of weird place that Star Trek had entered, where Enterprise had finished, and from 2009 onwards, it was a different flavor of Star Trek. Fan films like the New Voyages and things like that, series of fan films had really upped their game. And when I say up their game, it was meticulous attention to detail, set recreation, costumes. They started to do things with special effects. They started to do things with lighting and sound that were way, way, way beyond what people had seen before.
Ooh.
And
Are you talking about Star Trek Continues within that?
Star Trek Continues,
Visually, I have to say, Star Trek Continues visually is amazing how they've managed to make it look just like the original series. It is insane,
Yeah. It's and there was a lot of like the fan films that were coming out up until that point, based on the original series. The attention to detail and everything, the game had been upped. And we were in a bit of a desert of Star Trek, and we were craving more, and we weren't getting it. In 2013, I think the landscape changed. The internet was a thing. Crowdfunding became a thing. When crowdfunding became a thing, there was a situation, and what caught my attention was patches. So Alec Peters, who is he's a big noise in the prop world. The auctioning of memorabilia. He was involved with MGM and a lot of Star Trek stuff, and he's a massive Star Trek fan. He started a crowdfunder, and I think he wanted to raise a few $100,000 to make a really, really good fan film. And at the San Diego Comic-Con, he showed Prelude to Axanar. And everyone was really, really impressed, really impressed. The crowdfunder took off, and the patches flew out the door. And other sources of revenue opened to crowdfund this film.
Just to throw information your way while you're talking, the original Kickstarter for Prelude to Axanar, it raised $101,000, but the actual target was $10,000. So so that shows you over 10 times, what they were hoping for.
J.J. Abrams was behind it. I think George Takei was a big thing. He was saying, this is happening, support it. This is good for the franchise, for the universe. We're keeping Star Trek alive. Star Trek, everyone felt like it had died at that point. And it was a dud franchise. It had its day. And after Prelude came out, the Kickstarter, the crowdfunding, like it went viral. And $1 million was raised. And then $2 million was raised. And what Alec Peters said is, with this kind of funds, we could produce a fan film of epic proportion, which is actually going to look and feel as good as the real deal. And Axanar, like Prelude was Prelude, and we were going to get a full motion picture. And people said that this is the Star Trek that we want to see. This is exactly the kind of thing that we want. And I think at that point in time, CBS and Paramount, now this is where it kind of polarizes, because there's two schools of thought on Alec Peters. One is that he's a bit of a shrewd operator. He might not be the most ethical guy, and there's a lot of money gone his way. And he bought a warehouse in LA, and he was going to build a studio out of it. And he said, I've got this money. And everyone said, well, what happens to it after you finish this film? And he said, well, it will still exist. And fan films can be made there. This could be a resource for the fans. And a lot of people said, well, we want a piece of it. And that really wasn't what he was offering with the crowdfunder. And he's not a professional movie producer, or he wasn't at that point in time. And CBS kind of, they said, look, we don't mind hammy 8mm style short fan films, We're not, people pay money for licenses for the Star Trek brand. So we can't endorse this stuff because we make money from it. But we're not going to come down heavy on fan films because we don't want to be the bully. When Axanar started producing stuff of that kind of quality, I think, it ruffled a few feathers at CBS. And it looked like the people that were the fans of the show, the fans of the franchise, were stealing it. So they started nailing everyone with cease and desist orders, and Axanar as well as Alec Peters personally. And they started taking them to court. And my personal opinion of Alec Peters, knowing the situation out, it's almost 10 years exactly, almost to the day, but it's like 10 years, 2 months since Axanar became a thing. And at this point of the 10-year anniversary, over this period of time, Alec Peters has vehemently defended and protected Axanar. You know what I mean? There are critics of it, and he's harsh with those critics. But at the end of the day, this is a fan production, and everyone that's had anything to do with it, they've done really, really well with it. And he's right, in my opinion, to defend it because it's a good thing and it's high quality. Also, there are some members of the fandom that wanted to have an input in the direction of Axanar and say, well, do this and do that, and you should make this and you should do that. And he said, no, I've got an idea, I've got Prelude, and I've got Axanar, and it's ready to go. This is what we're making. I don't, I wanted $5 for a patch. I didn't want all of this kind of input. This is the way we're going. So he's defended his creative stance with it vehemently, and that's not to everyone's taste. And I think rightly so, because every ship needs a captain. And over that time, CBS nailed him, and nailed him good. And it was the story that I saw was the fan, the little guy who's not a professional. He's not a Hollywood mover and shaker. He deals a bit in merchandise and props and memorabilia, but he's not a big time producer. He's ended up with all this money from a Kickstarter, and he's really trying to do something good with it, something that's going to last. And they just tried to nail him. And in 2017, he settled with CBS. And I think J.J. Abrams, and there was a lot of pressure on them to just make this go away. New Trek has come out at this period of time. Now, my personal opinion, Discovery and all of those things wouldn't have happened without Axanar, because the amount of money that this guy raised and the amount of attention that this fan film got, it just opened up like, we're missing the trick here. We've got an intellectual property. We can really make some money. If we throw the bulk of our media machine and our marketing behind it, if he can do maybe $2.5 million like that, imagine what we can do. This is a cash cow. And I don't think Alec Peters got greedy. I think they got greedy. And it's changed the scope of fan films for Star Trek forever, because they put these quite restrictive rules on what a fan film could be. No longer could they take on actors from the franchise. No longer can they make feature-length things. It's limited to 15 minutes. I see Alec Peters as a little bit like an American version of our own, Jason Joyner. He's really into his Star Trek, and he's really trying to put something together for the fans to celebrate and enjoy. And he's getting nailed left, right, and centre. That's the way I see it, because CBS is so hard to deal with. And in 2017, they settled, and they said, these are the rules for making fan films. And it's really, really tight. And it kind of blew the feature-length film out of the water. That's never going to happen. And if he makes it, they're just going to sue him into oblivion. There's a lot of people that I think a lot of people saw the money that he raised and wanted a bit of it. And there's a few people, directors and other people that are connected to this project that they're tied up in legal battles now, why they left the project and all of that kind of stuff. But I always bear in mind that Alec Peters is a fan who wanted to do something good. He's not a real deal Holyfield Hollywood mover and shaker. He's not a big time movie producer. He's just trying to do what he can, and he's doing it in a place where a lot of sharks are looking to take your money from you. That is kind of the history of Alec Peters for me. He's just a fan that was into props and merch that kind of kickstarted this thing. He wanted to, I think, develop his own talent and get everybody involved, and CBS closed him down before it really took off for their own reasons. And he fought them as valiantly as he could, but they do treat him like garbage. Do you know what I mean? To the point where he's become a bit of a pariah at any kind of CBS function. They won't have him near the place, conventions and things like that. He's the whole Axanar thing's become a dirty word, and CBS are promoting that still, and I don't like that. For me, Star Trek has actually bloomed and exploded past an intellectual property. It's a cultural phenomenon. It's a massive thing to a lot of people, and to treat it just as an intellectual property to generate money for a movie studio is just missing the point. It's missing Gene Roddenberry's point. It's become a massive thing. And in my opinion, and it is just an opinion, in law may be different. In my opinion, it belongs to a lot of people who have lived and grown up with it all that time. When I first saw Prelude, my breath was taken away. I was amazed by it. So it starts off as this documentary type thing, like a documentary bit of footage in a memory archive. And it takes you through some of the characters, and then you start with the visuals. And the first visual that really took me was Arcanus 4, which was a real original series style city, a colony out in space on the border of Klingon space, and it's got that 1960s modernistic feel. Now, this was made 10 years ago, so it wasn't made in the 60s, but it captures that artistic essence. The storyboards must have been brilliant to do for this, and you see Arcanus 4 in all its glory with a little shuttlecraft, and then you notice that these effects are quite polished. Actually, these are really good, because technology had moved to the point where this wasn't massively expensive to do, and people can do it at home. So you've got this going on, and then the Klingons bombard it for 12 hours, and then you see this burning wreckage with the Klingon D6 battle cruisers just slowly sweeping through the sky and taking out these buildings with their disruptors and things like that. And looking at that vista, that tableau, that image, that's exactly what I wanted to see. Now, the Klingon battle cruiser, the D6, later the D7, it's a muscle ship, and it's a great looking, very iconic Star Trek looking ship, a lot like the Enterprise. Best done in Star Trek 6 when you see the Kronos 1 banking round to come up to the Enterprise A. It just looks good, and it's captured in that little scene perfectly, absolutely perfectly, and it just gets your Trek tingles going. It perks you right up. You're like, wow, this is what I've always wanted to see from Star Trek. This kind of thing going on the screen is brilliant. And it's not just the music, but the sound effects are brilliant. You've got the original sound effects from the original series, but then you've got this the engine noise from the Klingon D6 battle cruiser coming through, real bassy. And if you've got your headphones on or your pods in or something like that, you think this is really, really good. You've got the visuals, so you've got the soundscape with the backing music. The sound effects are brilliant, and then the visuals come through. The crisp, polished ship, the lights on the engines of the Federation ship in the original style, and it kind of just works on the screen. So they've got the stuff that you saw in the original series, updated, but in very faithfully and in loving homage, and it is homage to the original series. And you're like, that looks, if they had that technology when they did the original series, this is what it would have looked like. And you see these ships in combat, and you see the Ares, and you see other ships, and you think, this is beautiful. And the space battles, and the ship coming out of the nebula, and it's always the nebula, and that cloud trail following it, and the sounds that you wouldn't actually get in space, it all works beautifully. And then you cut to faces that we know and love, Tony Todd, JG, and they're not in their Klingon garb. The way it's delivered with the captains and the admirals, and even Alec Peters himself, who appears in the film, and the delivery, it's very, very good. It's not as hammy and polished as or dare I say, a bit camp as Star Trek delivery. It looks like real people, real captains and admirals talking to the camera, and they're just rolling it off. It's not. It almost feels like it's not scripted. And Tony Todd and JG do a massively great job with this. And then you get the warlord Karn, and you have to say it with that rhotic American way, otherwise it comes out Khan. If you say it as a Brit, it comes out Khan, but it's Karn. And he sat there with his sword in the Hall of Heroes, and he's saying, we had to take these people out. And what you're doing is it's the prelude to what we all wanted to see, which was the 4-year wars between the very, very new Starfleet from the very new Federation take on the Klingon Imperial Navy and the Klingon Empire. The story's great. The soundscape is great. The visuals are superb, and it's edited and brought together perfectly with the right balance of footage of space battles with interviews, and it just flows beautifully. And at the end of that, you're like, I want this film. I want it. If it's done in a documentary style like that, or if it's done in a different way, I want to see this immediately.
Don't care how, I want it now.
It polarized the Star Trek community because you got some people, me one of them, saying this is genuine Star Trek. This is the real deal. This looks good. It feels good to me to watch, and I want more of it. And then you got the people that quite like the post 2009 style Star Trek that say, well, no, that's just fan fiction. It's crap. What we've got New Trek, that is pedigree, that's the real Star Trek, and it kind of does polarize the community in that way. Some people obviously sit on both sides of the fence and say, look, I like it for what it is, I like the new stuff, I like this, I like everything Star Trek. I'm fully expecting Rashid to say something along those lines. But I was massively unimpressed with CBS for kicking this bloke around in the courts for so long. And I was massively unimpressed with the attitude of some of the fans towards it. Like, no, he's just ripping everybody off. And no, he's doing something really, really good. So when Axanar, the motion picture, was to be finished, it would have left the studio. What Alec Peters is doing is letting students come in to use the studio. Fan films can be made there using all of these facilities. People up and coming in the business, in the movie industry, they can have a go if they want to go at gaffering and gripping. If they want to use cameras, lighting, sound, special effects, if they want to do all of these things, those facilities are there now, paid for by the fans, for the fans to use. And I think that's a really, really good thing. It's almost like a community theatre group. It's superb. And looking at all of the other stuff that's come out, so the Icarus maneuver, this is some of the stuff that can be done. And it's good to watch. It's beautiful. It's absolutely lovely. I love all of it. Where we are now is the 2 other episodes that they're allowed to make, which is The Gathering Storm and The Crucible. They're the 2 other episodes that can legally follow Prelude. They've been shot. There's 19 actors involved, professional actors. The fan fiction rules state that they can't be Star Trek actors. It has been shot. It was shot all in one go, the 2 episodes, and it's now in post-production. And we are months, weeks off of seeing the final thing. And I can't wait for these other 2 episodes to come out. I've been waiting such a long time. And I'm not a big fan of disco. I'm not a big fan of New Trek in general. And this, to me, and I am one of them people, this is what New Trek should have been. This is what it would have been blinding.
Because you've been talking about the legal stuff, just to play devil's advocate. So this isn't necessarily what I think. In fact, it isn't what I think. But it's probably worthwhile just mentioning the fact that obviously CBS...
Don't you dare.
No, I'm
Don't
not.
you fucking dare, Dan. Where's the mute button?
CBS and Paramount obviously do own, the rights to Star Trek, so they've got a vested interest in protecting that. I've got some pretty strong thoughts and feelings about things when they become a big part of pop culture, and I do feel that to an extent you have to let Star Wars being the obvious thing, right? That you do get some things that are such a big part of pop culture that you have to realize that you may own the IP, but it's now become bigger than the product. That's not the discussion I'm going to have now, though.
It's a phenomenon. It's an absolute phenomenon that snowballed out of your control almost.
The way you deal with that, Dan, is what a lot of franchises did have. Disney's gone a different way with Star Wars now, but Lucasfilm before, you look how many Star Wars fan films there are. None of them have had legal trouble. A couple did in the early days, but then they brought out the fan partnership programs where, they say, okay, we don't, normally they say either we want a profit share if you're going to try and make lots of money off of this. Or we want it to be not for profit, but feel free to pay yourselves for making it.
Yes.
And that's kind of my thoughts.
Fantastic.
If you're not making money from it, if you're making money from it, then I can understand how there might be, hang on a minute, we own this. But if you're not making money, but I also think that let's say next week I write a series of books, right, about a wizard. Or I create a series of films about fucking space wizards or whatever. I'm not obsessed with wizards. And all of a sudden it becomes massive. You get people dressing up as it, having parties about it, there's theme parks about it, and people creating fan fiction. I'd be like, these guys who are creating the fan fiction, they're fueling the product. But the truth is, these big corporations are owned by men in suits rather than fans who have got they're there for one reason and one reason only, and it's turnover. It's about profit. It's about bonus.
And that's my one massive problem. I agree with copyrights in so many ways, but there is so many ways to go about it. And if you don't want to do that and you go like, Jesus, this is making loads of money, we're not happy with this is our property, do exactly what Patchy said. That's what they used to do. They used to go, I got a really good idea. It's based on Star Trek. Here's one. It's on a space station called Deep Space Nine. Here's a pilot. What do you think?
Yeah.
You could just move into the modern day and call this a pilot, and then you go, okay, this is still our IP, and we're still making an absolute fortune. But instead, they want to shit on all the fans and get it right up here. CBS, Paramount.
That Alec Peters he wouldn't have got greedy, and he wouldn't have said, well, I want $100 million for this idea. I don't think he'd have done that. I think that if they'd have absorbed Axanar into their family, they would have done very well out of it, and it would have been a beautiful creation. And the option was there to absorb it. So they've missed a trick on that. Like Jonjoe said, I could walk into Tesco's, I could walk into any supermarket, and I can buy Star Wars T-shirts all day. Lunch boxes, dressing gowns, slippers, everything. Can't do that with Star Trek. There was like a desert thing for Star Trek on TV. There was none, so we started filling that gap. There was a want for merch, and he started filling that gap. Was he taking a piece for himself? Probably. But was he putting the work in for that? Yes. Was it his idea? No. Was it the people in charge of Paramount? Was it their idea? No. They inherited this IP, and they were dropping the ball massively. If they'd have absorbed it, they'd have done well. And it was kind of bootleg merch. We're talking about T-shirts and stuff like that. But it was fundraising to make the best film because they didn't have that producer money. They didn't have that Hollywood money. Actually, I never had access to that.
No one's buying the official stuff. I don't own a single piece of official Trek merchandise because it's all terrible.
Yeah. And there is hardly any. I mean, I remember, I've said this before, right? But remember as a kid, right, I used to constantly be looking around for Star Trek stuff. Yeah, there were figures, the action figures. I had a few of them.
The Playmates figures, yeah.
Yeah, I had some of them. But other than that, there was nothing because it was ships I wanted, right? That's what I wanted, ships. And you might get the odd model that you could make up, but there was hardly anything. And then you go into Tesco and they'd be like literally chuffing Star Wars fish fingers, Star Wars margarine. It's like Star Wars everything, and there was nothing Star Trek.
Yeah. And every other franchise that's come out, even as far as some of the out there kind of stuff, like Alien, Predator, and those kind of things, they had merch coming out left, right, and centre. And the T-shirts and the caps and the key rings, you could go into HMV and buy Superman T-shirts from a franchise that was ages old. But you could still get the iconic stuff because it's that iconic comic book stuff. You could go and get Batman stuff.
Firefly, it lasted one season. We walked into a shop the other day. There's a big Serenity pillow with the official thing on it. Loads of them. And I've seen stuff with, the official T-shirts. That lasted one season.
Yeah.
One season.
Yeah.
Like, just do it.
Hey, and the film.
Killing the IP. Yes, and the
Even
film.
the TV shows. The X-Files was another one. But they had merch. They had posters. They had T-shirts. They had little collectible stuff. They had the trading cards. There is no Axanar trading card. There is no Axanar range of key rings. There is no Axanar Happy Meal. They never did any of that. They weren't denting that big marketing stuff. They weren't doing that. They come down so heavy, and they could have said, take all your stuff off of line. No more merchandise for sale. Keep the patches going, but nothing else. We will market it. We will monetize this properly, and we will take a piece of it. Or leave it alone. But just to crush it and kill it, it was just a massive amount of disrespect. Yes, it is Paramount's IP, but they didn't have the courage or the acumen to say we're dropping the ball. And rather than embrace it and say that, we've kind of created this, we asked for this, we give it a hiatus, and in that time this has happened, let's embrace it. They crushed it completely, in my opinion. Yes, they settled in 2017. They come up with new rules for fan films. You can actually make them. And do I think they're generous with it? No, this isn't like a magnanimous type of gesture. Like, yes, you can. It's not that. It's just, within these confines, we're going to do it because we don't want to look that bad. And the resultant product was Discovery. And I'm like, and that was dealing with believe it or not, the Klingon War. And what did we see of it? Nothing. And what did we get makeup wise? I mean, if you look at Khan, if you look at his makeup, it's spot on. Even down to the stitching on the Vulcan robes and things like that, spot on to the canon, to what we know and love. They've even in Discovery ditched the name Vulcan for Vulcans. I mean, like, they're literally just like, we're binning this franchise off. We're going to reinvent it because we think this is what you want. And I was just watching it like, and all the time I was watching Disco, I had Axanar screaming in my ear. This could have been so much better, and people would have lapped it up. They probably spent more in legal fees.
Yeah, was it bollocks?
Than they lost in lost marketing revenue. Do you know what I mean?
I can't see how they would have lost anything, because it's not like it wasn't competing with anything. And the people who are because let's be honest, right? Yeah, Axanar, it's really popular amongst fans, but it's only popular among Star Trek fans, right? The truth is, most Trekkies still don't even know it exists. So it's not making a dent in anything. The people who go on, Rashid, what are you going to say? I know what you were going to say, but you can say it.
Before. I do today. I never heard of it before.
It never heard of it before until tonight. And he's a massive Star Trek fan, yeah.
I never heard of it. So,
in fairness to Rashid, I forgot. I'd watched it back when the first ever sort of like introductory videos came out, and I was like, yes.
10 years ago.
Yeah, and then I'd realised that I didn't realise this is where my hatred that's been very evident in last videos of CBS stemmed from. I didn't realise this is where I forgot it was called Axanar. I just remember.
Yeah.
In fact, I may even have said when you said, Patches, about there's a fan film. I was like, oh, it's a really good one. I just can't remember the name of it. This is the one I was talking about. This is the exact one I was talking about.
Yeah.
In fairness, Rashid, I am only joking. I didn't hear about it until Patches posted it ages ago, and then he had to post it 3 bloody times before I actually sat down and watched it.
And then you thanked me when I did it. Posted it once.
And then he posted it, and I was just like, oh, it's just Patches being a dick. And then Dan posted it, and I was like, oh, this might be good. CBS and the relationship they have with their fans, it's like we're in an abusive relationship. They keep bitch slapping us, and we keep coming back, and we just won't leave.
In terms of, we're talking about, revenue loss, which I actually don't think is the thing. The people who are consuming this product, and by consuming it, I mean either backing the Kickstarter or watching it on YouTube or whatever website. The people who are consuming the product are the people who are consuming the official product as well. They're the sort of people who are going to be buying Star Trek models and buying Star Trek merch and spending a fortune on it. I can guarantee you now that those people are going to be the people who have watched Axanar will be there. I'm not saying that everybody who does that will watch Axanar, but most people who watch Axanar will be those people who buy the models and that, because they clearly love Star Trek, so watching this fan film.
Yeah, and let's remember that Axanar wasn't going to be a cinematic release. It was going to be a free thing put out on the internet. Now, CBS has had a pretty penny out of me through their licensed merchandise, through people like EMP and Eagle Moss, and everyone else that they've licensed their products with. You know what I mean? But I do consume the fan stuff. Yeah, I'm not a member of the official Star Trek fan club. I don't even think that even exists anymore. But I do go to unofficial conventions, and I do consume unofficial Star Trek gear. You can saturate the market like George Lucas, who kept the rights to the marketing stuff, to all of the additional products, the toy line and all of that kind of stuff. George Lucas has kept that. And as a result, the market was saturated with it. But he blazed the trail, and he gave an actual recipe to Paramount CBS of how to really make money out of this, give people what they want and make money yourself. And they've looked at his business model and gone, nah.
What would you prefer, right? To keep plodding along like we are, right, with CBS and all of that, or would you prefer it to be bought out by Disney or someone and then just fucking flood the market with it?
You're losing either way, because what you need, Steve, is a fan in charge. That's what you need.
Yeah.
But you need a fan in charge of the production and a business-minded person in charge of the business side of the stuff.
You need a Seth MacFarlane is what you need.
Yeah.
You need a fan who knows...
A fan will just bankrupt you immediately.
you
We
need
would.
a Seth MacFarlane. You need a fan who knows the franchise, that knows the product, with the business acumen and the artistic talent to harness it, to develop it, to market it, to move it on, and move it on from what it was to what it could be.
Robbed that I'd been charged a tenner to go and see it all.
So we
you know
went
what I
to
mean?
a little convention in a
Sorry,
market town not
can I
far
say-
from here.
So I think it's worth saying, Jonjoe, will you pull your trousers up?
Yeah.
I didn't
He didn't even hear it.
He
Pull your
didn't.
damn
Jonjoe,
trousers
Pull
up.
your
you
trousers up.
Oh Jesus, you're kidding me.
No,
Oh, I'm gonna die off camera now, slightly a little bit. I think.
Hey,
No.
John
on
Joe.
camera.
If I was a builder, John Joe, I'd be proud of that arse, mate. I'd be proud.
It wasn't
Aaron.
just the trousers down either. His crack was eating 50p's worth of that cloth.
Yeah, that was a cheeky wink you give us there, Jonjoe.
Oh, Jesus.
Christina!
Hi.
Shuttle Bay 4!
You know, welcome.
I
They
think
didn't. Oh.
Alec Peters is an ambassador for Star Trek fans, and he could have provided that link from the wider fandom. And he had his finger on the pulse. He knew what looked good. He knew what Star Trek was. He knew what kind of merch we wanted. I mean, patches, that was a genius move. And they're gorgeous. They're absolutely gorgeous.
I've got a question for you, Jonjoe, and I've got one for Jed, okay? Now, so Jed, what I want to hear from you in a minute is, because one thing I did notice in the Axanar stuff I watched was a lot of D6s and D7s. I'm watching this thinking, I bet Jed's practically masturbating over this. And
Yes.
And Jonjoe, the question I've got for you
Yes.
is, I've avoided most of the fan films. I think in the past I've said that I was one of the backers of Axanar, and do you know what? I need to correct that. I wasn't. I had never watched Axanar until the other day. I confused it with Star Trek with Renegades, because I did back
Renegades,
that.
yeah.
So, and it was such a long time ago. I kind of mixed it all up. But anyway, Axanar, I'm actually quite stoked by it. I was really, really impressed with it. But I've kind of avoided a lot of fan fiction stuff because I like, and I'm going to use one of your favorite phrases now, world building, and I like lore, and canon means a lot to me. And I don't like watching other stuff thinking it's kind of polluting the river almost. You know what I mean? This is canon, that isn't. But I did get a hell of a lot out of this. A bit like the Andrew Robinson's book. A lot of people
A
complain
Stitch
about
in
canon.
Time.
After
Yes.
watching what I've seen, I really, really, really wish that CBS Paramount had turned around and says, we're going to buy this, and it'll be a co-production, and we'll make money
Yeah.
from it. But Jonjoe, in terms of fan fiction, what do you think of fan fiction in like these films and that? Because I know that you are a big fan of lore, world building and canon.
So in general, despite what I've said tonight, I am not the biggest fan of fan fiction to a point.
Yeah.
I think if they try and cover major topics like the Klingon War or the Romulan War, they are in it as a whole. They're in trouble because that's something you can't change. I am very much Axanar's got it right, and I'm glad they've got it right because they've said enough without putting a story in as such. They've said, we had these ships, they weren't very good. The Klingons were better. The Klingons got bigger ships. We got a bigger ship. They've not introduced any really new ship. Well, a couple of new ships actually, but they've not really. You could still do a series on the Klingon War,
Yeah.
a full Paramount series on it, and not really break the timeline because there's facts that they already said were established. Like it's said in Deep Space Nine, I believe. No, Voyager. About the origins of the D7, I believe, was during the war.
If you say during the war once more, I'm going to pour this cup of tea right over your head.
But I like fan films that go really specific, random meetings that don't affect the world. It doesn't mess with the lore or any of the world building. It's just a part of it.
And to a really good standard.
Yeah.
I mean, I must say that Interlude and Icarus Maneuver, the CGI in that probably looks better, but that's because it's newer, right? But the stuff you see in Prelude to Axanar is still way better than any of the TV series you saw up to that point. It's just that, that is 10 years old now, but it still looks really good. And I think the interviews are done brilliantly. The actual performances in the interviews I thought were superb because it's so easy to get that wrong. In one of the other ones, I think it was Icarus Maneuver, there was one of the characters who was being interviewed. It kind of felt a bit like acting. It was good, but you could kind of tell it was acted. Whereas with Axanar, it did feel like an actual documentary style interview, and it felt like people weren't acting it. It didn't feel like these lines had been rehearsed. It was brilliant. I mean, Tony Todd is just a superb actor anyway. And there's a bit where he starts to get a bit choked up, I think, a bit upset.
So I signed off on the plan. the end of conflict, one final battle.
And it's genuinely brilliant. But all of them were good, including, it has to be said,
Alec Peters.
Alec Peters, because bearing in mind that he's next to Hertzler, he's next to Tony Todd in particular, like I mentioned, great actor, and Alec Peters wasn't out of place with them.
He looked at it, and then he looked at me. And he said,
100% insanity. A bloodbath waiting to happen.
When he did those interviews, it was absolutely sublime. It was perfect. And I think the problem you've got is in the action scenes is it's probably filmed in isolation. So it's like, there's your line, we filmed that. You're not bouncing and reacting off each other. And I think it's a really, really difficult thing to do.
Status on the other ship.
But I think Alec Peters in Prelude was absolutely superb. And I think the way the interviews were filmed with kind of like interview cliches, which you've got to do to make it look real. You've got the slider going along. You had a little bit of lens flare. I don't know if that was captured in camera or in post, but it looked good. You had all the B-roll footage of the actual battles, which looked absolutely superb. And it did blow me away. There's a great line in it as well. I can't remember the exact line, but something along the lines of, the only true test for a combat battleship is combat.
The only true test for a combat vessel is combat.
I really liked that. And it was only 20 odd minutes long, 21, 22 minutes. And it definitely left me wanting more. And I'm really looking forward to the next two installments of it. I did think it was genuinely greatly done. I think it was a risk, because I think I was cringy when it first started, because I was expecting it to come across as a bit of a vanity project, especially because I knew Alec Peters was in it. So I thought, oh, here we go. It's like, oh, I've arranged this, so I want to be one of the main guys. And actually, I was like, actually, it's really good. So that you know.
I think some of the situation that where they've filmed the next two episodes, Gathering Storm and Crucible, they've used a type of camera people in the business steer clear of, because it gives you a kind of visual aesthetic that people say it looks really sci-fi if you use these cameras. So, and it's a nice fluke that they've done that. They've done loads of green screen, and like I said, they've got 19 actors. But if you look at the Axanar's YouTube channel, you can see, and I'm into this kind of stuff. I'm into the behind the scenes and all of that kind of stuff. I love all of that. And there's no shortage of that with Axanar. And you can tell by listening to the director of photography and the director themselves, they've gone the extra mile to look at how to squeeze as much value out of their production as they can, down to the selection of the type of camera that they're using.
They've used, and I'm just looking at, they used anamorphic lenses, which I mean, anamorphic lenses, for people who don't know, there's two types of lenses. You've got a spherical lens, which is basically a half a sphere on a lens. If I could grab one and show you, and you've got anamorphic lenses, which is a cylinder, and an anamorphic lens, what it does is you end up with a really long, thin image that you stretch, and it's used for quite stylistic purposes. There's a lot of distortion, so the edges are really blurred, and you normally get there's a lot of distortion in it. It doesn't look real, but it's used a lot. It's seen as quite a filmic thing to use.
It's good if you've got a crap set as well. It blurs out the. It distorts all the
I suppose
edges.
it does. But one thing I did notice about the filming, actually, the last one I watched, I can't remember the name of it now. I'll have a quick look. The last one I watched was Icarus Maneuver. I noticed that didn't look too digital, which is good. It looked quite soft. It wasn't filmed on film. I know it wasn't filmed on, because nobody films on film these days. It costs too much, especially an independent film like this. I don't know what software they used to process it, whether it was like Adobe or whether they used DaVinci Resolve or whatever. But they've clearly used some sort of filter digitally or a filter on the lens to soften it, a bit of halation. It looks really good. I love that soft look. So the people behind this know what they're doing, and it does look superb.
I mean, I'll open it out to everyone that's watched it without talking about Alec Peters, CBS, and the legal battle and the absolute battle to make Axanar. What did you all think of Prelude? First, just Prelude by itself. What did you all think of it?
When I watched it when it first came out, I was at work and I was on the works computer and I was bored shitless, and it popped up, and it had only been on a few days, so I played it, and I actually thought it was a trailer for a new Star Trek. Yeah, that's how good I thought it was. And then all the bullshit happened, but I loved it, man. When I first saw it, the whole thing about it just looked so polished. And then to find out it was a fan-made film, I was wanting more. For years I was waiting, it should be out, and then I found out what happened, and it was like, great.
Gary Graham's one of the first faces you see, as the Vulcan, and he actually
the
looks
late Gary Graham.
the late, and it's quite recently that he passed away. He looks better as a Vulcan in Axanar than he did in Enterprise. He hasn't got that weird yellowy green tint. It looks much better, and it's really close up. Really close up. His makeup was bang on. He looked brilliant.
Yeah, one of my Andorian colleagues once said, "Don't push the pink skins through the ice."
An Andorian acquaintance once said, "Don't push the pink skins to the thin ice."
It had canon in it.
Yeah.
Everywhere. It didn't try and make its own crap up.
And listening to the thing about the pink skins as well, and other bits and pieces, like going back over that and looking at the script and how canon it really is, I thought when I originally watched it, this is a pilot.
Do you think that part of him was thinking, hopefully, if I can get this out there, this will lead to something big? In the same way that, Cobra Kai, which is a massive TV series now, the Karate Kid spin-off, that was a fan-made thing that was on YouTube, and now it's on Netflix, right? People Just Do Nothing is a TV series, a brilliant comedy series. I absolutely love it. And that started off as them just doing videos on YouTube and taking it seriously in the hope that it would become something else, and it did. So it's one of those things that does happen these days. There are platforms, people to create stuff, stick it out there in the hope that it take. And I wonder if part of Alec Peters thought, hopefully Paramount CBS would be like, what you've done, actually, this has got legs, and we'd like, maybe part. I don't know whether it did.
The only thing that they needed in Prelude that I think would have nailed it is Jeffrey Combs. If they had him in there somewhere, they'd have gone. Yeah,
even just like walking past in the background.
Past, yeah.
Just there.
How do you know he wasn't in it?
But as which character?
Every character.
He played the D7.
And it has two things for me though. There's two things that always stand out. I shouted bloody Vulcans when it was showing the Vulcan ships leave. And then when the D7 came out, and the D6, it's got the little red light on the torpedo, but it's not the one we're used to. It's not quite as bright. It's not quite as big. And then when you first see the D7 and it goes like that, I was like, dun, 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 in the background before the music had even kicked in. So for me that's one immediately. If that's got two reactions out of me instead of, it's all right,
Yeah,
then
but it's got those details in there that a Trekkie's going,
it builds up the D7 as well. The D7 needs building up. It's never really had a build up like that, and it felt like this big. All of a sudden, it's like constant foreplay for this D7 coming out, and then when it does, it just.
D7 was the ultimate expression of the Klingon warship.
But what I liked about it, when you saw the Axanar shipyards, and it was showing you the Constellation class getting built, and then it flipped to the one nearly done, and it was the Enterprise.
Yeah.
D just went.
Yeah.
Trek Tingle.
You see, also in it, you see the old bird of prey.
Yeah.
The old Klingon bird of prey.
The old one, yes.
Yeah, and I was loving it.
That bird of prey, when it crashes into the city. I had to rewind it again.
The D6 crashing into the planet is incredible.
Yeah, when that D6.
Yeah.
Damn.
D6. When it crashed. Honestly, I rewound that because it was so. I was thinking of you, Jen. I thought.
Is that with the smoke bellowing out? And the smoke trail?
And you just see it go straight through the buildings and then boom.
Oh, it's incredible.
It's after the Aries.
Brush would have loved it. It's a shame Brush isn't on, because I'd love to, because Brush is always saying that he wants war. You get promised that you never see it, and I'd love to know what he thought.
You get that here, and you get it in. You get it in 1080p with that gorgeous sound and the orchestral score behind it, which some of it is original as well. And you just see these torpedoes getting spanned. It's just beautiful. And it's what we wanted.
So, first of all, we've got to have our token vote. Did I like it? Did I dislike it? Thumbs up or down? Where we go? I did genuinely like it. Yeah. So, I literally watched one after the other in the order that it was put on. And now I don't watch any fan fiction at all. I don't watch anything like that. I stick to the proper stuff. When you're used to the episodes, as much as I want more Trek, I can never bring myself to watch it. And it started, and I was just sitting there. I was opening up my lunchbox, because normally when I'm watching Star Trek, because the episodes inside and out, it's more there as background noise, and you just watch it. And this came on, and I'm opening my lunchbox, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, what's going on here? And it genuinely felt like not new Trek as in what we see now with Strange New Worlds, but it was something new. And it was like, oh shit, I need to pay attention to this because this is new. I've not seen this before. And then sort of as it was going on, I heard JG's voice, and I was like, I recognise that. And I'm watching him, and I'm going, he ain't got his makeup on. And then it was the same with Tony Todd. I was like, hang on, he ain't got his makeup on. What's going on here? And they were like, just watching the whole thing through. I like a lot of what you guys have said. It was, the CGI and everything and the way it was told. I think that was definitely the right way to go about it. It was almost like In the Pale Moonlight-esque, if that makes sense, with the narration and just the way that was going. But I really enjoyed it. I was a bit gutted it wasn't longer. I didn't know all the history behind it like Patches has told me, but it was one of those things where you want to see more. Then when they called on Garth and when they talked about the pink skins, like you guys have said, it was like that linked it to, this is to sound bad, but this linked it to real Trek, if you know what I mean. That made it feel less like something that a fan had done. It was like an extension of the franchise, if that makes sense.
I know.
And I really didn't get the whole fascination behind it. And then because we're doing this tonight, it sort of forced me to watch it, if that makes sense. Yeah. It's one of those things where I've gone, yeah, I'll watch it when I get round to it, which I never will get round to it because there's too much other stuff to be watching that I know, and this episode has made me sit and actually watch it. I was literally glued to the screen because I know what's going to happen in all Trek, because I've seen it, but I didn't know what was going to happen. And that really gripped me, which I know sounds weird, but
And I get that. And I'd even pay more attention because I expected, even though I'd seen it before and I've obviously not watched it in a while, I expected that other ship to get saved at the last minute.
Yeah.
Because it's Trek.
Yeah.
And it didn't. And I was like, oh, shit.
Was that the third one, the Icarus maneuver? Interlude.
That was
Interlude.
Interlude.
It was interlude because they sacrificed themselves because Ramirez was on the Aries.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
You know that Starfleet is very much like a wet flannel. It's all diplomacy. Let's talk it all out, blah, blah, blah. And, when you're going up against someone like the Klingons, you want someone to get up and go, do you know what, mate? You ain't the biggest bully. I'm going to fucking have you.
One of the best lines.
It did still feel like Starfleet, though. Sorry, I just think because and that was the good thing about it. It wasn't just wasn't like, oh, this is Star Trek where it's full of bad boys. It did still feel like Star Trek. There was that thing, oh, this is a sacrifice that we're making, for the greater good.
Yeah.
So, sorry, Pat, just go on.
No, one of the best lines is, if words were water, the humans would drown us all. I thought that was a wicked bit of writing. Very, very astute. And I don't know if that's a quote from somewhere else. I really hope not. But I thought that was excellent.
If words were water, the humans would drown us all.
It was like TOS, but upgraded.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Graphics and everything white. Just all the technology involved. It was how TOS would look if they'd made it now. Yeah. Everything was sharp. It was on point. The music harked back to it. You'll get no complaints from me, which is, I know, unusual.
Do you know when you watch an episode of Star Trek from which any of the series, sometimes there's a moment that happens, oh, it's a really cool moment. I wasn't expecting to get like an entire Star Trek series worth of moments in these three very short, what's the equivalent of one episode. And one thing I just want to mention quickly is in the Icarus maneuver, there's three things in quick succession. You get this amazing scene, again, I have to rewind it, where you got two D6s almost flying in mirror formation, one facing the other. It's such a quick scene. It's only about a second and a half, but it looked brilliant. You've got one that way and one that way. And the way they move just looks absolutely amazing. Then you've got this bit where a Federation ship, it basically spins, and it kind of spins into a stall, and then its engines kick back in and it flies off. I mean, I'll stick these in, but it's such a brilliant scene. And then the other bit I've got is where the plasma ignites. That was great how you saw it just go along like that. I loved all that. Superb.
That's a move. That's actually a move out of Star Trek Online. Like leave a trail of that green plasma and then ignite it.
So I saw this years ago.
Yeah.
And there's just so many fantastic lines in it. One of my favourite lines is, first thing we needed to do was build a ship. something that would springboard the Federation back into action, back into the war.
The first goal was create a class of ship that could spring Starfleet back into action, back into battle. We had to leapfrog Klingon technology.
Fabulous line, absolutely fabulous. And it was just the effects as well. This was just far superior in anything I've seen. Absolutely fantastic. And this afternoon, I saw Savul with the other ambassador walking through Vulcan. That's the first time I saw that. That was this afternoon. And that was so well done. Being with Enterprise, Savul was so anti-human. Don't extend your reach. Don't do things too quickly. Always holding them back. Never a positive word to say. Always slapping them down. And when you saw this, it was complete opposite. There was genuine affection for the human race. And to hear him say it, it was absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
And it was so right to do. It was absolutely perfect. And it was actually heartwarming as well. It was so well done. And that's the thing with all the Axanar that I've seen. Everything is really well done. It's never over the line. It's never over the limit. It's never over exaggerated. It's just perfect. I was fortunate. I actually met Alec Peters in Vegas in 2016, and we spoke.
Instantly jealous.
And he was saying about all the problems he was having with CBS. He said, the problem we've got at the moment, he said, we want to do a film and they're not happy. So I said, look, if you're having problems, ditch the film. Just do a series of what you've done with Prelude, where it's been like a documentary setup. I said, because it was so well done. It is so fabulous. I said, I can assure you the fan base will be more than happy to see more documentaries exactly like this going forward. I said, you've just come out saying the D7 was entering the war. Do the next one. I said, how long did it take for that Constitution class to be ready? How many losses did the Federation take before it became ready? And he actually said, well, he said, it's not just me. He said, there are other people that I work with. He said, there is almost a board of Essence. He said, but it's definitely something I will suggest. He said, we can chew it over. Obviously didn't go very well because it didn't happen really, did it?
But it is, Chris. I think you are responsible for what Axanar became. So that's what it's going to be. 2 more films now that are in the documentary style. So, it's your idea. So everybody, thanks to Chris.
No, I don't need it. I don't need it.
Do you know what, Chris? We're not even going to. You're not allowed to go to Destination Trek next year. We're literally going to buy you a ticket to Alec Peters' house. And you're going to go and have a chat with him again, and you ain't leaving until he posts something bloody new. Like, even with the whole war, the way that they used the map to show the loss of territory and then the gain of territory was such a simple thing to do. Yeah, it was really impactful in your understanding and the quick explanation of just how much territory they were losing, and it forcing their hand to build something that would fight back. Sorry, Chris.
That's all right. But yeah, I mean, as I said, it's faultless. I couldn't find one thing that I didn't like about it. And let's go back onto the bit of bashing CBS, because for them to kind of turn round and say you're not allowed to have Star Trek actors in it, that's not just bashing the fan base, that's bashing the actors as well. No, you are not allowed to work. We employed you. You belong to us. Forget it. That is just majorly who the fuck do you think you are? Now, about 5 years ago, give or take, I went to Reading, and it was a very small Star Wars convention. It was made up by fans, and it was for Great Ormond Street. And what they did is they went to Lucas, and they sent him a letter, and they said, look, we're doing this small little convention, they said, for Great Ormond Street. Would you like to participate? They came back with absolutely. And what they did was they produced loads of banners to deck out the venue, all Star Wars, and they provided 2,000 little pin badges that said Star Wars supporting charities. And they said, there you go. Now, can you imagine CBS doing that?
If Captain Jack Sparrow was property of Paramount, they'd stop Johnny Depp going into children's wards. Do you know what I mean? Dressed up like Captain Jack Sparrow to do the bit. It was I can't remember.
Where's
now.
the
Let me
money in
see.
it? We're not making any from because that's why they stopped the
Yeah.
conventions over here. There's no money in it, so why should we bother?
Like I said earlier, I can understand Paramount CBS being a bit protective over their IP because people pay for these licenses, and people will not pay for these licenses if you can just produce T-shirts and patches and films and all of that.
And it's a point. It is a point because lots of the stuff used in Axanar is copyright protected. The ships, the L cars, the uniform, the
Music.
story, almost everything is copyright protected. So they are walking a thin line. But it's a fan film. It's a it's drumming up interest in your IP.
Well, when you think of some of the biggest names in Star Trek, right? That we think of with Deep Space Nine, because we were talking about this, before. I'm not sure if our Stephen Bear did, but they started off by handing in fan scripts to TNG when they were taking in fan scripts. I always forget the name of the guy now who's done that for All Mankind, and Ronald D. Moore. That's how he started. He went in and handed it. I think he was actually on a tour of the set and he handed a script over, and then he ended up being like a series supervisor or whatever, and he's got his own series now. So it is not really that dissimilar to that. He's just gone out, crowdfunded it, and created something. He said, "Look, this is," instead of just handing over a script, he's like, "I've got this proof of concept here, and it's done."
These people, right? These fans that are doing these things. That's free advertising.
You've got to control it. I agree with the fact that you've got to control it. Otherwise, you lose your IP.
Yeah.
You do.
No, when you talk about Alec Peters earlier on, I do feel the need to say, because I was kind of playing devil's advocate earlier on, and I don't want it to sound like I was knocking, because I'm not. I've got literally, I've got nothing bad to say about Axanar. Okay, what I've seen of it so far. We've got 2 episodes coming out. There might be shit for all I know, but based on what I've seen, I'm excited about it because. Honestly, I was watching it. I was trying to pick it apart a bit, and I just couldn't. I might have like the odd tiny thing. I thought, oh, maybe that wasn't awesome, but it was still brilliant. And it's honestly, I can't knock it, and I enjoyed it so much. I am gonna when the other 2 come out, I will. I think on a fairly regular basis, binge watch it all because in the space of probably an hour and 20 minutes, I'll be able to watch all of it and enjoy all these amazing moments and rewind it and watch them again. All these just fantastic flashes. And, I mean, Alec Peters probably won't ever watch this, but if he ever did, thanks. I think it was, I really enjoyed watching it. I thought it was genuinely superb, and I want to see more, and I want to see people like him and the people he works with in charge of all this stuff. Because we've mentioned the fact that they're not professional filmmakers. The truth is, a lot of the people who are involved in this are professionally involved in the film industry because these are skilled people. These aren't people just playing at it. I mean, a lot of times with fan productions, as a reward for backing at a certain level, you get, you'll appear in it and that sort of thing. And I dare say there was maybe an element of that to the non-Axanar production, Icarus and the other one, Interlude, because I think there's quite a lot of people in there, and it felt like maybe it's a case of that's a reward for being part of it. And you know what, they seem to manage that really well. But that's not how Axanar was done. It's a bare bones cast. Everybody counts. Every word counts. There was not one shoddy performance in that, including Alec Peters, who I don't believe is an actor, but I was blown away by his performance as well in Axanar. Honestly, I think it's superb. So I'm not knocking Alec Peters. I'm trying to play devil's advocate a bit just because it feels like, just to get a bit of balance in there. Because I do know there's been a lot of negative stuff said about him online, about maybe the way he's dealt with Tony Todd. I know there's a bit of a spat there, but I don't know the details. So I'm not going to discuss it. But it does come across very well in his videos on YouTube when he talks about it. He seems to be a very open person. He's very engaging in his videos, and I do enjoy watching him. But I know that some people haven't really mentioned those short films, and I just wonder if there's anybody else who's seen it has got anything that they want to add. Sam, for example, we've got Christina, it's Christina's first time joining us, and it's great to see you, Christina. Did you watch it, Axanar? And Dee as well, you've not spoken about it yet.
I was going to watch it today and get called in to cover shifts because my colleague is sick. So I didn't watch it today. That didn't happen. I've seen bits and pieces of it before, during lockdown. So a while. But I was always, when I did see bits and pieces of it, I was like, damn, that looks really good. Really good. So I do need to sit down and watch it. But no, I'm sitting here thinking, right, okay, I can give my 2 bits about fan fiction because that's my thing.
Okay.
I've been writing fan fiction for more than half my life and reading it and making fan art and being part of that fandom because I grew up on the internet. Hi. Hey. So, no, there is literally hundreds of thousands of words of Star Trek fan fiction on this laptop that I'm using right now. It's fun. I like it. But it's like Star Trek can be blamed or credited, however you want to put it, for popularizing fan fiction from the original series.
Yeah.
That's where it came into the public like consciousness, was the housewives in the 60s writing Kirk and Spock fanfic and passing it round. That's what happened. That's where it comes from. This is us. This is Star Trek history, and it's great. I love that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, like, because there's so much, and like it's a big way of like interacting with fandom. Okay, some of it's shite. Some of the stuff I've written's shite. That's just how you go.
From 9 years old on occasion, like Penfold's got loads of it. And he come up with an idea for Star Trek and he drew it out, and people have drawn comic books in this group and they've written fan fiction and stories and they've come up with characters, and Star Trek does that to you.
Yeah.
You know, you can't leave it alone. When the episode's finished, it kind of echoes and you're still kind of in it. And it does spark certain people's imagination. So, no, I get that. I get that. The fact that you do that is no surprise to me at all, actually, Sam.
No,
anyone with an artistic flair will use this as an inspiration.
Yeah,
I think.
But like, you know, you can say, oh, it's really self-indulgent. Yeah, of course it is. Like, you're putting it online for free for a laugh because you had fun writing it and you just want your pals to see it or whatever. It's one of those mediums of art, and it is a medium of art, no matter how badly it gets panned and criticised as like cringy or whatever, that you can sit and have those 6 moments of Star Trek dingles in an hour. So they're not going to do it in an episode. You can space them out, but if it's fan fiction, you just fire them in. You're going to get like Sulu actually saying, "Oh my."
Oh my.
You know, things that you desperately wanted to get in an episode because it'd be fun is the thing that you can write or produce or draw. It's a very popular way of interacting with modern fandom.
Well, the thing is, I don't want to like say, oh, Sam writes fan fiction because of this. I'm not Sam, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I get the distinct impression from you that you are a massive Star Trek fan, and therefore you know what I mean. You're passionate about this. Yeah. So I mean, I personally don't think fan fiction is self-indulgent. I think some projects are. I think me doing this is probably quite self-indulgent, to be honest. When I'm editing it, you know, I know this isn't fan fiction, but it's still a Star Trek related thing that, you know, I put a lot of time into, and there is an element of that. You know what I mean? It is maybe a bit of it is showing up when I'm doing a bit of editing, and I'm quite, you know, like, oh, that was slick.
It's the Star Trek product, though, isn't it? It's a thing that starts.
But this props up this inflates the fandom. This is what's made Star Trek great. You know, from letter writing campaigns to people writing fan fiction about Spock and Kirk having, you know, some gay relationship, which I know I think it was the origin.
Borderline canon now, apparently.
Yeah, borderline.
Was that? Did you just say make Star Trek great? Are we getting a MAGA cap at Star Trek?
No,
what you're promoting there, Dan? Is it? Is this? Have we gone completely off the rails? Is that what's occurring?
No, but what I mean is,
yeah, I want it on Patch's cap.
I just want that T-shirt that says "Make Trek Great Again" underneath.
It makes Star Trek stronger. You know, you've got this fan base who's passionate. Because the truth is, it's no real difference to dressing up in a costume and going to a convention or forming a ship or forming a group like Shuttle Bay 4. And the fact that a lot of this fan fiction, a lot of people will write and never even send it to anybody else. That just shows you.
Oh God, no! Like the stuff that's sitting on this laptop has never been published because it's not finished.
But that's because
that's a different matter.
But Star Trek means so much to you that you sat there and you spent hours writing this stuff. And if nobody ever sees it,
hundreds. I'm not exaggerating when I say hundreds of thousands of words. I had to get this new laptop because my old laptop stopped being able to actually load up the document.
Okay.
I'm not fucking kidding. Like, this is the shit I do. It's good fun. I had nothing to do in lockdown, can you tell?
Yeah.
I haven't really watched any fan pictures before. I did actually watch Star Trek Renegades. I did watch that.
Yeah.
And the picture quality wasn't great, but I enjoyed it. But on this one, the picture quality was brilliant. I love the battle scenes. They're brilliant. And I'm a big J.G. Hertzler fan. So when I saw him in it and I heard his voice, I was like, oh my God, I'm so happy.
A Vulcan's gonna do what a Vulcan's gonna do.
I'm a huge J.G. fan. So to see him, to hear his voice, obviously Tiny Todd as well. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I am intrigued to see more. It has went in my appetite, let's be honest. I want to see more. I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan of it, but I did enjoy it. So
yeah, so you are a big fan of Discovery. And I'm just wondering, because I know a lot of people have said that they would have rather seen this taken up rather than Discovery, or but Discovery was maybe influenced to an extent.
So when was this made? Was this made about 1 or 2 years before Discovery? When was this actually made?
2014. It's made me want to
That
watch.
was a great question, that, Dan, by the way.
What question?
What would you have preferred, like the Discovery as you know it, or the thing? I thought it was a really interesting question. It's interesting what you say, Rashid, and I do get it. It's annoying because I slam on Discovery quite a lot because I don't. It's not the Trek that I like. It's not the comfort Trek, but I don't mind it. I still watched it, and that says a lot, doesn't it? The fact that I watched it. To me, if Starfleet Academy is good, then the pain of the mushrooms will have been worth it to get the new season. Lower Decks is fantastic, but I think that would have happened anyway. But there is no denying that the Academy is very much wouldn't have happened if Discovery didn't happen. So and I really always wanted a Starfleet Academy
me too.
thing. So if that's good, then hey.
Yeah, it's been lovely seeing you, Christina.
Yeah,
brilliant to see you, Christina.
Good to see you, Christina.
I'm going to go in a minute. I'm trying to think if I've got anything more to say on these Axanar things. I'm just looking through my notes. Music, though, I noticed. I think in Interlude, I don't think it was actual Star Trek music in there, but it sounded really similar to it. I think actually, I think
it wasn't.
I think Axanar was the same actually. I don't think it was official. I think it was just quite close to it, but it did feel in keeping with Star Trek music. And I was really impressed with how it wasn't the Star Trek music, but it sounded, so similar. But then I like
if you listen to the opening chords, it's
slightly different. Yeah, it's good without sounding like a parody. But Icarus Maneuver thought, fuck it, and they used all the original music, including the da 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 da.
Yeah,
but so it was.
Take care, yeah?
Okie doke, I'll see you later.
Good night, Rashid.
Take care, mate.
See you there, Rashid.
Come on then, Dee, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I loved it. I thought the opening to Prelude is when I saw it, I just thought, it's Gary Graham, just because of his recent passing and everything. I did see it ages ago once during an episode on here when we were talking and Patches was telling him, no, you've got to watch it. So he put it on his phone for me one night and I was transfixed then. But when I watched it back and I started making notes, that's when you notice little details like the music and the locations. I recognised the voice of Tony Todd. I recognised the voice of JG. But what threw me was not seeing him in Klingon and just seeing him as Feds, and I'm thinking, are you kidding? What? It was because it's their voices. It's their voices coming through, but that's not what they look. I mean, I know that is what they look like. I'm not stupid. I thought it was a bit weird they called him Khan.
Yeah.
Karn. Yeah.
Honestly, I've been running out of names. Like, what was the other one called? Chakonde. I'm like, are you taking the piss? Honestly. I was amazed at the end when I found out that he was being played by Richard Hatch from Battlestar Galactica. The original, not this newfangled shite.
Whoa!
It's not shit. I don't know it. Because I'm loyal, mate, to my Apollo. Anyway, the woman threw me because as a kid, and this woman is the double of her, I thought there was a program called Space 1999. I thought she was in that. I thought, my God, she's not aged a day. And that was like 50 years ago. It's not her, is it?
Kate
All
Vernon.
the way through it.
She's called. I'll have a look now.
Yeah, that's not her from Space 1999, mate. Just. And that was back in, the 70s?
No, yeah, she was in Space 1999. No, she wasn't really. No, she wasn't.
Really.
Oh, mate.
Give me your secret.
Dan's on one today, actually, a little bit. I haven't noticed this.
I was so sad to see the Destroyed Federation ship. I've never seen that before. It really upset me. I've not seen it in that much graphic detail. Do you know what I mean? The detail, that's what got me, the details.
Yeah.
I noticed Slate was wearing the roll-top jumper. So they were even sticking to the costumes.
Yeah,
they were even sticking
like
to the
that.
uniforms.
I like that.
You know what I mean?
Can't be a bit of a lure, can you? You just can't.
Yeah. I noticed one of the ships was called Geronimo. Geronimo!
Yeah, I think that comes from that because I think it's the Next Generation. They have the USS Crazy Horse.
Yep.
So
yes,
they are.
Yep.
They're going for those, Native American heroes type thing.
She said my name when she said they call me Queen Bitch Whore. That's my name.
Yes. Yeah, that took me a little bit off guard.
Yeah.
It really took me off guard. I was like, oh, hello. Okay, we're going there.
They called me Queen Bitch Whore of the Federation.
The battle scenes are amazing. And I've just got a little mention for the production coordinators in the credits. Ryan T Husk was in there, and he's my friend from Seventh Rule.
Ah,
So
right.
when I saw it, I was like, oh. So I just had to add that in because that's just a little shout out to Ryan there. That was the first time I've ever seen that ship do that with the evasive maneuvers going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When he did that, I was like, what is this?
Yeah, but it's
That's difficult to do with a physical model. That's why they've never done that.
You had to
before.
rewind it about 4 times because I couldn't. I just kept. I was like, how did it do it?
Yeah.
No, show me again. No, I didn't see it properly. Do it again.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had to watch it about 4 times.
Normally, evasive maneuvers would turn a bit.
Yeah.
The first time you got proper evasive maneuvers was a Defiant, wasn't it? Really.
It filled me with love because of who was in it. Do you know what I mean? They could have been saying the phone book for all I cared. It was JG and Totten. Do you know what I mean? It was them. I just loved that.
It's annoying that they're going to have to end it after these next 2, to be honest with you. I hope they kind of go. I kind of hope Paramount kind of goes bust before then, and
I don't. You got loopholes, right?
That agreement collapses.
Yeah,
because those 2 films that we talk about, Icarus and the other one, I always forget the name of them both. But the one that isn't 2 that aren't Prelude, they are not part of the agreement. Those are fan films based on that.
They're fan films.
So there's loopholes.
Well, the same guys in it.
Yeah, I know, but it's a different production company. So
It's
legally
not, yeah,
speaking,
but it's not Todd, and they're not allowed to use any.
Oh yeah, no, you told me that after Axanar. Hey, you're not using them guys.
I think there's something about the story as well. You have to wrap the story. You can't have anything longer than 15 minutes. You can't have 3 episodes on the same storyline.
All right. D. One thing you mentioned in then was you said something about John Gill. Who's the guy who's the character who's narrating it? John Gill is actually from an episode of TEOS. I can't remember the name of the episode now. It's the Nazi one, who wear the Nazi uniforms.
Oh, right,
he plays Kirk's history teacher or history professor. He plays a historian in that episode, so that's the same character narrating this as a historian. I thought that was quite and I didn't know that. It's only because I googled it afterwards, because I thought that must mean something, and it did.
That's why I wrote it down.
And the other thing I got to comment on what you said, Dee, I think it's really important to recognize the all the other production. Obviously, we're talking about Alec Peters a lot, all the other production crew, because it was superb. Everybody has played a part in making this. I've watched I know a lot of the other people have watched the documentaries as well, where they've built the sets. So you've got joiners, you've got electricians, you've got your special effects artists, you've got musicians, and the music is. I know some of the music is the original music, but a lot of it's original music, and it's done so well. I mean, this is feature film quality stuff. Right, I don't think that's what it is.
I think that's the only thing I can say bad about it. I didn't get enough of it.
Yeah.
It wasn't long enough.
In fact, I would have quite happily sat through 2 hours of that.
Yeah. Somebody just said, I'm not sure it was D. This is the first time we've all actually really enjoyed the thing that we watched. And you need to remember, we actually watched 3 separate short films with different stories, all linked. And it is amazing that we all liked them all. I think Prelude was my favourite. Although having said that, the Icarus maneuver had some moments in it which were just so cool. I'm gonna have to watch it again.
I think there's a bit where Alec Peters is talking about the sacrifice that was made, and he said, that's what you do. That's what captains do. They make sacrifices. They do what needs to be done for the mission, and it's the mission that counts. And I think there was an analogy there to Axanar itself. Do you know what I mean? Him being the captain of that ship, and it took sacrifice, and there's been pain, but it's the mission. And he's just focused on this project completely for 10 years, consumed his life, really. It must have. So, yeah, there's money involved, and there's all sorts of stuff, and his reputation's on the line, but he's focused and dedicated to this mission. And I think we're all glad that he's produced what he has, and he can carry on. And I think he's done a great job.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that the Star Trek world, in terms of fandom, is much richer because of this thing. And that's something that I hope he's proud. I'm sure he is proud of it. Thanks to him, thanks to the production team, and also, Brush, we miss you, and I can't wait to see you hopefully next Thursday. I say that, I don't know if I can join next Thursday because it's one of my kids' birthdays, and I might be out having something to eat. It's the 18th birthday, so I've got to do something.
Yeah,
that's a pretty slim excuse, to be honest, Dan. I think.
Yeah.
I've made this.
Hey, Shut Bay 4's birthday.
Oh,
that's so nice.
You
We thought we were blowing out the
You
candle.
came to 29
So we're
blue.
just gonna blow then. We're not singing the song.
No, we are doing the song, but I didn't. So I cocked it up. I ruined it. Sorry, let's do it again after 3.
3,
Pick up
2,
and brew
1.
it.
Pick a bloody number.
Happy
birthday
birthday
to
you.
happy
birthday
birthday to
to
you.
Happy
Happy
birthday, dear Shut Bay 4.
Happy birthday to you.
Hip, hip. Hey, everybody get ready to blow.
1, 2, 3.
That's what she said.
Hey.
Did I
Well, I
just
think
say
it's
something?
safe to say we're never going to form a choir.
That's what I was
Yeah.
about to say.